Gonna go live. Est-ce que vous voyez mon screen?
Oui, أنا أشوفه.
Just so I know. Ah, yeah, okay, great. So we're gonna start. Present. One, and welcome to the Pixel Art Workshop. First of all, we're gonna talk about why is pixel art different from other pixelated art, or in general, why is pixel art different from any other art? 2D, of course. In pixel art, you have the total control and can manipulate every single pixel yourself. Advanced 2 will not do the job. So if it's like the blur tool or if it's like the blending tool, all these tools will not work in your pixel art because pixel art is about sharpness. It's about, as I wrote it and as I said it, controlling every pixel. It means that if a pixel isn't in its place, it will be visible. Ça veut dire que راح تشوفوه لو كان لو بيكسل ماهوش محطوط في بلاصة راح تشوفوه لو كان البيكسل لا لين راهي معوجة ça veut dire qu'elle va se voir. Si on change de couleur ça sera visible aussi. C'est pas par exemple qui met les dessins à 2D ou là où tu vas dessiner même إذا كاين like a minor mistake in the lines or let's say vous avez laissé genre une tâche ou là, elle va pas vraiment se voir إذا you zoom enough. In pixel art, it's not the case. Everything is sharp, visible, and you which is great because you can control every pixel in your canvas. So pixel art was born from limitation. That is why many manual technical are still used today. Alors, ce qu'il faut savoir, c'est que before, when the game industry, let's say, was created or was born, it started with pixel art because that's the only art they could have made in computers. I will actually show you some picture to see how they made pixel art back in the days, and I think it's pretty amazing because it's very different from how we do it now. Technological progress gave new possibilities into the games, digitalized picture and photographs, pre-rendered 3D models, full motion videos, and much more. Once sprites stops being edited on pixel level, they were not considered pixel art. What I mean by when I wrote this is that the evolution of pixel art gave everything that is about digital picture, photograph, pre-rendered, it's all the science of pixel art. Now we move to the next slide, which is here we're gonna just compare to for you to have a look about what is pixel art and what is not pixel art. Obviously, the first penguin, which is right here, kind of look like pixel art, but it's actually not pixel art because we can see that there is a lot of blur. There are a lot of, let's say, details that cannot be considered as pixel art. So if you can see, for example, here his face, we can see like here the shading is kind of well blended. So we cannot call it pixel art, even if the arms look pixelated and the shape look pixelated, but it's still not pixel art. If we take a look at the second one, obviously it doesn't look like pixel art. It's very well drawn to the penguin. But the third one is pixel art. As you can see, we can see the limitation of the shadows, the lights, the colors. Everything is sharp. Everything is you. When you see it, you know it's pixel art. That's what I mean by this. And even like the outlines, the change of colors, we can see it, and it's well defined in pixel art compared to les autres art style. So here is the side where I said that I would be taking you back to history to see how they made pixel art back in the days. So هنا كما on le voit, Bakary, they didn't have like la tablette graphique and they did not do it with a mouse. They actually had some, I'd say, cool objects to do that, hardware, if I use the technical term, of course. So as you can see هنا في هاد la photo هادي, they actually had a pen that can color the pixel once it touched the screen. And I don't know how to explain it really well, but it just worked that way. Once you touch the screen, je sais pas إذا كي كنتو صغار كتعيطكم هذيك لا تيلي تاع بكري, and once you put your hand on it genre تحس التليسيتي تضرب like like تحسها like some electricity in your hand, and this is how these pens work. So the contact between le stylo هذاك et l'écran actually could change the value of the color of the pixel. And that's how they drew back in the day pixel art. There was also like let's say c'était pas vraiment une tablette graphique, mais qui m'a like they do this holding it, but it's not showing well. But it was like kind of une tablette, and they had like just une télécommande with a joystick, and they had just to move around pixels and like change the value of each pixel to like give colors and etc. So yeah, this was like the just the fun part of the, let's say, pixel art thing. Now we're gonna get to the part that how what do I do if I want to make pixel art. One thing you need to know is that contrairement au dessin 2D, contrairement à d'autres dessins, 2D art is almost like 3D art in dans le sens where it's also sculpting. You do not draw, but you sculpt shapes and then build upon that shape. For example, if we take this image or this character, it's a Pokemon. I don't know which Pokemon it is, so yeah, if someone knows it, just write it in the comment. We can you start by blocking shapes. So for example, this is the final character, but the first thing we're gonna start is by blocking shape. So we block the head, we block the eyes, and we determined the big shapes, the body, and then the shape of the plant over his head, and that's it. This is the first step. It is the most important step because ça va être votre base. Ça veut dire que once you're satisfied with the shapes that you blocked, you can now pass to la deuxième étape qui va être refining, shading, cleanup, and complete. And after refine, what you actually do, I usually do these two last steps together. I don't really separate them and etc. Of course, the cleanup comes last, which is normal. But what you once you have your base, you're gonna start adding the details. If you have outlines, which we're gonna talk about dans quelques minutes. If you have outlines, you're gonna start adding outlines. If you have more colors, you're gonna start playing with the colors. You're gonna add the shadows. You're gonna add the lights, and basically it's kind of the on va dire avant la dernière étape. Once you're satisfied with the lighting, the shadows, the outlines, whether you want to do outlines or not, whether you'd like to add details or not, and etc., we're gonna pass to the second, let's say, shading step, which will on va dire c'est juste que c'est des retouches finales qui vont juste améliorer votre jeu. So for example, إذا تحبوا تزيدوا له for example كيما هنايا زاد له shadows, like underneath the character, you can add more details that enhances the thing, which هنا زاد like زاد des couleurs to make it more lively and etc. Of course, this last step will only depend on you and your eyes and how you want your drawing to be. Essential tools and software. So هنايا دوكا on va parler de what are we gonna use for pixel art. Personally, I use a software called Asprite, which is a really good software if you, especially if you are making pixel art for games, because it has a lot of, let's say, tools and brushes that could actually help you if you're building games. But you can also use Photoshop or Paint. It also works, but I would prefer to use Asprite if I was working for a game. So we're gonna open Asprite, which is right here. Once you download it, I forgot to send the link actually to download it, but I will send you like a link, or you can just find it on the net. There is like a free version that you will use once you're here. This is the interface. You're gonna just new file, and here you have this new window. Donc هاد window هادي, it's gonna start with like the size of your on va dire canvas. We're gonna talk about how to actually choose your canvas size depending on what you want to draw. But for now, I'm just gonna pick a random size and let's say I'm gonna take the width 128 pixels by 128 pixels. Here, on a le color mode. Ça veut dire que soit on choisit un mode de couleur RGB ou la grayscale, or index. To be fair, I never use these. I always go for RGB because I feel like, I mean, pixel art is cool when there are only two colors or when it's grayscale, but it's better to just go with RGB style and then use only black and gray. Always pick a background that is transparent instead of picking it white or black, because white or black will not. You'll find yourself drawing instead of mettre like du pixel art. Donc transparent background will give you like your environment better than if you take both. So these are the settings we're gonna go with. We're gonna just click OK, and here we are. This is the interface of Sprite. So, à droite, on a la palette de couleurs, which of course can be changeable, et on va en parler tout à l'heure. Here is like the color grid, which also you can pick like color that are not in your palette if you want to go darker or lighter, etc. Here is the table of the colors. Il y a عندنا هنايا le type de, on va dire, de paramètres تاع les couleurs اللي we want to go with. Either we want to go with red, green, blue, RGB settings, or there's the hue saturation value settings. There's also, I think, hue saturation light settings, the gray settings, and the mask. For now, we're not going to talk about which one is better and why and etc. because we're going to talk about that a bit later. À côté هنا عندنا every tool, and if you hover over it, you will also have like the shortcut. So this is the select tool. Its shortcut is M. Knowing the shortcut will help you a lot because you won't be using, let's say, drawing here and then click it here. So make sure to just get familiar with the shortcut. It will make your workflow easier. So عندنا هنايا the select tool. We have the brush, which is the thing that we're going to use the most. So on a brush, manipulation pick any color. I'm just gonna pick really quick red. Here's our brush. There's also this spray tool, but you will rarely use it, which isn't really, it just spray pixels. But we're just gonna talk about the pen tool. There's the eraser, which shortcut is E. The pen tool is shortcut is B, obviously. There's the zoom shortcut. You just can use like your mouse. If you're using a mouse or a tablet, you can just zoom. There's the move tool. There is the bucket tool. Yeah, it's called the bucket, where you just press G and then it's like a bucket tool. There's the line tool, which also you're gonna mostly use because drawing a line by hand isn't, on va dire que c'est pas efficient et qu'on va beaucoup utiliser just the tool ta lines. There's also like this shapes, which I use, I won't lie, because sometimes you just want to optimize your time and stuff, so you're just going to use these two. The Skione, the contour tool, and the blur tool, you will never use these. Unless you're working on something where you want to actually use these, but en général, you're not going to use these because it's not for pixel art. It's just going to mess up everything you do. Here, عندنا هاد le petit tableau هنايا, which is gonna be your layers. Ce qu'il faut savoir, c'est que if you're working for a game or any piece, you're gonna need to use layer, mais especially for games. Et we're gonna get to that because if we take, for example, let's say, as I usually like to do, on va prendre un cercle. We're gonna take it red. And if you wanna like start building something out of your shape, or let's say this is, for example, this is the base. We're just gonna do an apple really quickly. I always like to give the example of the apple because it's easy. If you actually have a software or like you already have iSprite, feel free to like draw with me. And I would like to see your art on the chat because it's fun if we do it all together. Let's say, yeah, say if I want to build my shape, just like we said, we don't draw the shape and then on la colorie. We actually sculpt it And once we're happy with the shape, we're gonna start working on like detail, shading, and etc. So for example, we'll try to fix apple, because right now it's not looking like an apple. Okay, and draw my best part. Okay. So for example, this is the shape of my apple. I'm just gonna add like the green thing. And let's say this is my base. Now that I want to move on to the next step, which is gonna be about shades and etc., what I'm gonna do is that je vais rajouter another layers. And why we do that généralement, c'est parce que des fois, on va faire des erreurs au niveau du shading, où là, on va vouloir retouch, par exemple, the base, or we want to change something else. This is why we use layers. So you just gotta have to put layers. You can press Shift N to add a new layer, or you can just right click and then you have new and you put new layer. And here, for example, نقدروا نزيدوا shadings. So what I'd like to do is pick the color. You press I to have like the eye drop to pick the color اللي عندكم في الcanvas. And for example, we're gonna take like the white thing. Up, we're gonna on va نقصوا له l'opacité. This is where you play with the opacity of your color, of course. Tac. And we're gonna draw. Of course, هنايا عندكم like this small, on va dire carré. هنايا عندكم like you choose the shape of your, on va dire brush. كاين people اللي يديسين avec les carrés. And personally, I'd like to use the circle, especially for when the size of my brush is really big. I feel like it's more organic and it gives more life than the square shape, but it depends on what you want to draw. If you prefer the square one, it's totally fine. Here you can play, as you can see, with the size that the brush channel. On peut aller jusqu'à 64. For now, I'm just gonna use 3. And I use, let's say, white to add the shades. So we're just gonna play like this. Okay, this is ugly actually. Gonna make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, this is better. And if I wanna add like the shadows, I'm just gonna play here. Add that this way. If you're familiar with design and like software for design, this isn't very different than that. So yeah, this was just a note. On va diminuer هنايا and we're gonna add this. Okay. And here's kind of an apple. We should add more shadows here. Like that. Have like some shadows here, some shadows here, a little bit here. Then I drop two, and we're gonna put like a lighter green for more details. And go this way. And yeah, this is a very simple apple. But this is just to show you that this is what layer is about. Also, we're gonna use especially another use of layers is when you're gonna animate. Once you're gonna start animating, for example, a character, you're gonna need to use layers. What I mean by that, so for example, let's take un caractère qui va commencer à marcher. عنده le mouvement. What defines le mouvement تاع marcher, c'est ses bras, son bras droit, son bras gauche, son pied droit et son pied gauche, and also his body and his head. So every part of the body is gonna be drawn in a layer because every part of the body a son propre mouvement. Ça veut dire qu'on va pas pouvoir mettre tout stacké dans une seule layer, ou mettre par exemple les deux bras dans la même layer and the 2 feet in the same layer. This is gonna cause you a lot of trouble, especially since à un certain moment le mouvement va s'interférer. Ça veut dire que the hands راح يتلاقاو or the legs راح يتلاقاو, and you don't want to find yourself تفاسي d'un côté and then say the other thing also go in and redraw in, and it's not going to be coherent and the animation won't work. This is why we take everything in one layer, and it helps us, on va dire, à mieux manipuler les choses. Another thing that can be Sprite is the frames. Talking about animation, frames are but for animation. Ça veut dire que quand vous voulez animer quelque chose, ça va être in frames. You're gonna draw frame by frame. This isn't like, for example, rigging animation or like any animation software for 3D and etc. In pixel art, you do everything by hand. There are some software that I saw that makes like animation for pixel art, etc. But if you're working for a game, you're gonna need to draw the frame by frame animation and then export every frame as, let's say, as une image. And then these images, you're gonna give them to the developer, or if you're the developer itself, you're gonna export them and import them into your coding engine, whether it's Godot or the Unity. You're gonna need every animation to be in the frame by frame style. You can't import it as a video, and you can't import it as a GIF or GIF for people who said GIF. This is pretty much everything about like l'interface تاع Sprite. Does anyone have any question, or do I continue normal? I don't Oh yeah, Photoshop. Good luck. Yeah, I would rather, let's say, je vous conseillerais beaucoup plus Sprite rather than Photoshop, parce que I know Photoshop لازم you change actually the settings, and then لازم تعرف like تغير the grid attack and etc. Okay, so I guess ما كاش like questions. We're gonna move on to the next point. Okay, so first thing we're gonna go through tout ce qui est pixel art, or how I call them the pixel art fundamentals, is gonna be the canvas size, the color palette, the lines, the anti-aliasing, and the outlines. So for the canvas size. Alors هنايا je vous ai mis juste une petite image pour avoir une idée à the canvas size in like pixel art game that you probably saw. So for example, عندكم like the Pocket Station was actually a 32 by 32. So the pixel art that was made inside the Pocket Station was probably a 16 by 16, because since the whole canvas is a 32 by 32, you want to include everything inside it, so it was a 16 by 16. The Nokia 3310 was 84 by an 80 by 48. And let's take like the most common one. The Game Boy was a 160 by 144. And the Nintendo DS was a 265 by 192. Personally, when I work for like game and etc., what I usually do, of course, it depends on for which console vous allez faire votre jeu. And of course, مع le développeur and how you want the game to look. But what I usually like to do is to always take the size de 108 par 192, which is just like size de 16 by 9, divisé par 100. And I draw on that. Whether I like the game to be like a 64 by 64 or 32 by 32, or like on expand. Um, what I'd like to show you, Tani, c'est que, for example, when we mean, for example, je suis sûre que vous avez entendu des jeux pixelisés, when you go look for assets, you hear about like, this is a 64 by 64 asset pack, or this is a 32 by 32 asset pack. What it means that the objects of the game, ولا que ça soit the tile maps of the game, are built within that proportion. It doesn't mean that it needs to fill the whole proportion. So for example, let's say I want to make an object that is a 64 by 64 object. Ça veut dire que make like canvas size 64 by 64. And هذه هي ma limitation. Ça veut dire que my tile map is gonna fill the whole square. Ça veut dire que si par exemple je vais prendre du marron et que we're gonna try to build like a small tile map. We're gonna take like a light color. We're gonna pick the line tool, donc sur l'opacité. And we're just gonna build some, try to make something. Make this small tile. This is, for example, a tile for a platform where the character is gonna move upon like this line. If you see like a 64 by 64 game or a 32 by 32 game, it means that the tile map, most of it is gonna be built upon this ratio. Et c'est parce que une fois que comme je vous ai dit que once you're gonna build your tile map et que you're gonna build the whole art, ce qui va se passer chez le développeur, c'est que هو داخل his engine, he's gonna have, let's say, a sprite editor, and in that sprite editor يقدر يقسم الشيت تاع le dessin تاعكم into like squares, and هذاك squares he needs like the size تاعهم. So for example, if you give him a sprite that is a 32 by 32, he's gonna be able to يقسم like the sprites into 32 32 and then use هذوك les parties to draw the actual platform and etc. So what you want to do, for example, and I'm sure I usually do, c'est que par exemple, comme je vous ai dit, je prends un 192 180 and what I usually do, juste on va tout effacer هنايا. Delete. C'est que we're gonna هنايا go, I think in view, we're gonna pick grid. You're gonna go to grid settings. And ce que vous allez faire, c'est que you're gonna put the size the game اللي خيرته. Que ça soit du 64 by 64 ou que ça soit par exemple du 32 by 32, etc. Let's say for example 32 by 32. Ah non, you change it in the width, of course. C'est 32 by 32. It's not in the XY thing. Okay. هنايا what we did is that we created a big grid. Et ce qui va nous aider في هذيك grid, c'est for example if we're gonna build our tile map and etc. Of course تقدروا تديو a canvas size plus grand. C'est juste que make sure that your grid راهي مقسوم على the size تاع the object that you're gonna draw. C'est que we're gonna make the whole thing. For example, if you want to make a tile map, ce qu'on va faire, c'est que on va prendre juste un truc basique تاع a top-down platform. Just gonna take, for example, this cross, this way. هكذا عندنا كاع لي كوتي. هنايا for example, genre, il y a des pixels qui dépassent et ça va poser problème après qui يقسم le jeu. Ça veut dire que هاد les pixels ما راحش يخرجوا, راح يخرجوا it's actually this square instead of this square. So what we're gonna do, c'est qu'on va les effacer. And this is what the grid helps with. Ça veut dire que this is how les lignes تاع the grid is actually how كيفاش راح يتقسموا عند like the developer or the game engine if you, as I said, do everything. Up, up. Then we make sure that il n'y a rien qui dépasse. We fix. Tac. Tac. And then for example, هنايا on va faire les bordures. I'm just gonna do something really simple. Not gonna go نقصنا ان بيكسل هنايا باش تجي like uniform. Uh, or maybe not. It's fine. So just to take this side. There we are. Tac. Then we pick. نبدأ نسكبوها هادي vite fait. Up. Voilà. And then we pick like fader color. Then you're just gonna add like details. Parce qu'on va pas faire vraiment un truc détaillé et tout. So this is actually like a sprite for top down game, not like a platformer right left. Just gonna add like some detail. Right now it doesn't look like something, but it's just to show you. And then for example, I could enhance it like a layer as I said. Like I drop the color. Gonna I'll play with this thing. Do something like that. Um, something with it. I'll say I don't like that. And I'm gonna use this. It kind of also build in something nice. So we're gonna do this. And we're gonna do this. And then we're gonna do this. And هنايا this is a time map. Let's say بلي هادو هما لي كوان اللي راح يكونوا for example اللي يجيو من تحت and ما كاش منها ما كاش منها. This is the coin de droite, this is the coin gauche. And this is actually how you're gonna build your sprite. It means that ça veut dire que vous allez minimiser باش تسحقوا. Par exemple, إذا عندكم par exemple une plateforme, واش عندكم le coin gauche ou le coin droit, le coin تاع الفوق si vous voulez build like something tall ولا. And عندكم les parties اللي راح تكونوا يتعاودوا. C'est-à-dire que you don't need to draw the whole map, but you just need to make time maps. Unless your game isn't about time maps and etc., where you need to draw actually the whole environment, etc. To make you're not gonna need time maps. You're just gonna need, for example, to pick a canvas size, pick a brush size, and then tu vas juste dessiner à la sac. Mais usually pixel art games are made with time maps. This is what we mean by a 32 by 32 time map. If we want to draw an object, ce qui est différent de tile, c'est que the object has to just fit inside of the tile map. The tile. Tile map. Inside the tile. Ça veut dire que par exemple, si je veux dessiner un petit objet هنايا, je vais pas prendre tout le carré, which is like weird if you do so. Mais ça voudra juste dire que, for example, if I want to draw. Yeah, let's go. We're gonna try draw une potion. Like une fiole de potion. Actually, there's a tool in Sprite. If you press W and like the magic select, which select like by shapes and color, and it helps you like instead of taking a square, you just select, which I use a lot parce que ça aide beaucoup. Voilà, on essaie عندنا دوكا une fiole and as you can see, genre ما درتهاش سوا قد le carré, mais it just fits in. C'est-à-dire que j'aurais pu faire plus petit si j'aurais voulu, but it's still gonna be, on va dire, when it's gonna be cut في ال engine في الgame engine تاعكم, it's gonna fit the square هذاك اللي يتقطع. And we're just gonna add layer to add like for it to look like a glass. And this is, for example, in Fiol that we're gonna use for our game. Even though it looks actually kind of big. You can select Shift and then là, j'ai pris juste avec le truc. Allez. Tac. Tac. Now I'm going to layers. Press Shift. Okay. I'm trying to resize it, but yeah. Be careful with the resizing because as you can see, resizing في pixel art c'est pas كيما resize في like other software. C'est que راح يتبدل la forme le plus تصغروا. Parce que le plus c'est limité, le plus ça va être compact. Donc, I wouldn't recommend really resizing things unless you're sure you can fix it après. Mais voilà. Okay, does anyone have questions for now? Or is everything okay? Okay, great. Et donc voilà. And then this is what we mean by canvas size. As I said, if you're starting, you can like pick كيما ندير. Je prends juste avec le size تاع 16 by 9 and I use it in pixel art. Ça veut pas dire que je vais prendre 1920 parce que this would make the canvas too big. And بعدها حتلقاو روحكم genre à dessiner du pixel art avec des petits pixels sur a big canvas. What you want to do, c'est que هذاك le 1920 fois 1920 fois 1080, vous allez le diviser par 100. And then you're gonna use that ratio, which is 192 fois 108. And then you can draw, and then كي تexporter وهم بعدا, you are resizing. So for example, quand je vais export that, you'll have like here file and then you have export. You're gonna export as. هنا في التابلو هذا تاع export واش عندنا like whether we want to export it PNG or JPG ولا GIF. هنا vous avez like pick where you want to save your thing. هنا vous avez the resize. Alors هنا the resize عندكم by pourcentage. The thing that you need to know, c'est qu'en pixel art, you don't want to genre zoomer by 27%, you don't want to zoomer by 35%, you're going to use whole numbers. And هنايا on a du 25, ça veut dire que يصغر, 50% راح يصغر, 100% ça va être resté كيما راه, ça veut dire que it's not going to be resized. Du 200%, 300%, à partir du 200% حتى le 100%, ou là, à partir du 300 plutôt, pardon, حتى le 1000, ça va juste être for purpose like post on Twitter, ou la post for like where you want to showcase your art. Mais إذا you want to like give your art to be used, it's gonna be, par exemple, vu que Anna j'avais divisé par 100, ça veut dire que je vais export like the resizing by 100 parce que j'avais divisé par 100. Si par exemple j'avais divisé ce canvas size تاع like the screen تاعي, which you should check مع developer تاعكم, like يعطيكم زعما ال size تاع the game شحال راح يكون et tout, and then vous décidez de dessiner par exemple sur la moitié au lieu de dessiner like on a big canvas, vous avez juste dessiné sur la moitié. هنا vous allez resize by 200. Pourquoi? Parce que vous avez divisé par 2 et donc كي حتمدوهم له هو vous allez lui donner fois 2 باش هكذا يكون like the proportion right. You're not gonna give it 100%. Mais vu que أنا j'ai juste divisé par 100, je vais juste lui donner I'm just gonna export it the resizing by 100. And this is for everything that is about canvas size. Of course, King Community Workshop, I will give you like, I will send you like a Notion file I made. We have videos about like canvas size and etc. Also, there is a book I use which you're gonna see because I'm gonna show it to you, and other like useful resources if you want to learn pixel art, whether it's for your game or for general. Vous aimez faire du pixel art. Now we're gonna move to the next, on va dire, part, which is color palette. Alors, ce qu'il faut savoir pour color palette, this is not applicable only for pixel art, mais c'est aussi pour n'importe quel type d'art ou je dirais pas design parce que design has its own like laws, but ils utilisent تاني هاد on va dire اللوا هادي. كيما وريت لكم tout à l'heure, genre when we click هنايا, genre il y a plusieurs types ou on va dire type settings for colors. كاين the RGB red green blue values, ça veut dire que you're gonna pick your colors على حسب the red and green values. كاين the hue saturation value, the hue saturation light, the gray and the mask. The one you're gonna use mostly for pixel art or for like if you do 2D art in general is gonna be the hue saturation and value, on va dire settings. Ça veut dire que هنايا واش عندنا the hue is gonna pick the color. Ça veut dire qu'on va aller vers the range whether we want like a red, a yellow, a green, a blue, a purple, pink or red, etc. The saturation is gonna play like على la saturation de la couleur. Ou the value is gonna say whether votre couleur est claire ou votre couleur est foncée. Ça veut dire que plus نقص la saturation, plus نزيد le value, راح نروح vers du clair. Plus نزيد la saturation, plus نقص le value, je vais aller vers du foncé. And this is how you actually work. And le A هذا c'est for the opacity. You just want to play the opacity. كيما j'avais joué هنا شوية l'opacité باش les couleurs they don't clash themselves. So, as I said, if we want to play the shadows ولا the lights كيما هنايا, like for the apple, and for example, for the lights, and I use white for this example, but I could have used like another color. Let's say, je vais enlever هادو et je vais add a new layer et que I drop the color تاعي et que دوكا right now I'm gonna work for the lights. Ça veut dire que je vais avoir besoin d'une couleur plus claire à la couleur de base تاعي. Ce que je vais faire c'est que حنقص la saturation تاعي وحنزيد the value تاعي. For now the value تاعي راهي 100%, donc I don't need to touch it actually. I'm just gonna play with la saturation. And of course l'opacité parce que comme je vous ai dit, genre we don't want like the line standard you like this sharp unless you actually want to and you're building like an object that is attached to another object that should be, on va dire, c'est pas juste a shadow là, c'est pas juste a light, it's actually an object that you want que ça reste dans la palette de couleurs تاعكم. This is how you're gonna play with it. Ça veut dire que حتنقصوا la saturation, حتزيدوا value pour les couleurs les plus claires. And I'm just gonna نقص l'opacité نكبر شوية vite fait. And I'm gonna use a light, which is like plus harmonieux et plus doux que using white, even though this is closer to white, but it's still not white. And if I want to go for like a shadow, what I'm gonna do c'est que حنزيد la saturation et que حنقص the value. And here we are. Ça veut dire que je n'ai pas juste pick un random red foncé هنايا من هاد like let's say the color grade. Ça veut dire que j'aurais pu partir vers du foncé directement هنايا et tout, mais c'est plus pratique de partir pour avoir, let's say, plus d'harmonie. C'est que أما pick la couleur de base تاعي أما نقص الفاليو وحنزيد saturation and أما have like a darker color. And this is how you have like des couleurs qui sont plus harmonieuses. Par exemple, si je veux utiliser, on va dire, un clair qui hada, mais dans une autre couleur, par exemple pour la tige, c'est que je vais partir vers du vert et que c'est que je vais faire la même chose. C'est que you can take actually the values that you use, par exemple du 64 par du 100%. Et par exemple, je vais prendre du 64 par du 100%. And je vais avoir les mêmes tones, on va dire, de clair, which are gonna fit together. إذا نشوفوا هنا je vais juste diminuer, خلي l'opacité كيما راهي. This is a light. Of course, إذا ما بدلكمش بلي هنا c'est juste pour la cohérence des couleurs. If you prefer like less light thing, you just need to تنقصوا l'opacité and put it over your base color. هكذا ما تجيكمش like trop تامي. And let's say that هكذا. Of course, how to make good shadows and good lights is by studying the light, which you need to do whether you draw pixel art ou n'importe quel art. For example, if I say that my light is going here, ça veut dire que cette partie sera plus claire que cette partie. Cette partie sera plus claire que cette partie. You can just, for example, like the light تجي من فوق, this is gonna be light and this is gonna be darker, etc. You just need to study where your light is coming from and what's the first surface is gonna hit. And right now my light is kind of hidden this way. And you can use it like as an eye thing. This is where the light is going and this is what we're gonna see. And هنايا راح تجي بالمظلمة. This is what you need to do if you want to use hue, saturation, and value stuff. What I would like to show you right now is a website called Lospec, and هاد le site web Lospec هذا, what it actually provides is ce sont des palettes couleurs de vos couleurs for pixel games and etc. Et vous pouvez télécharger. Je vais vous montrer comment like you download the palette and use it for your game. And what it does actually, c'est qu'elle va vous mettre une palette de couleurs and then it's gonna show you an example of how it looks. باش نتوما once parce que of course before you start drawing and like making the art for your game, you already decided about the story and the art side, the art side, plutôt the mood you're gonna go. Whether it's more techno, retro and stuff, you're gonna go for more cool tones and like a little bit of pink and yellow, etc. But if you want like let's say cafe games where it's cozy and warm, you're gonna go for warm tones. This is up to you. Like, on va dire la direction artistique de votre jeu, c'est à vous de décider. Just pick like the vibe you want and then the color are gonna reflect that vibe. Et c'est pour ça que le spec est génial parce que fait like images that you can actually see how the color works together and genre la vibe qu'elle donne when they are put together. So for example, هنا le tone des like these brownish, yellowish tones give like a warm, even though it's used for like on va dire Western Texas thing, it's still warm. هنا عندنا like very contrasted colors, toujours des couleurs plus contrastées mais un peu plus pastel, and like there is a lot of, on va dire, des palettes de couleurs that you can use directement parce que ce sont des gens qui ont like studied la palette et ils l'ont utilisée, c'est harmonieux to use. And yeah, how you're gonna like use les palettes at the website, and it's totally free, which is great. So for example, like this one, what I'm gonna do c'est que I'm gonna press هنايا راح يعطيكم like le size تاع l'image تاعكم اللي télécharger بها. It's up to you. Ça veut dire que si vous limitez size, vous allez aussi limiter les couleurs et tout. What I usually do is I always pick le 32 by 32 parce que on s'en fout. On va pas vraiment need that. I'm gonna save the image. I'm gonna put it on the download file, just download file. I'm gonna call it Dodo. We're gonna save it. And then what are we gonna do? C'est que we're gonna go هنايا في الاسبريت تاعنا. Il y a les trois lignes تاعنا هنايا which are the options, and then هنايا عندنا like many options for the color palette. And what we're gonna use is something called load palette. C'est que you're gonna put load palette. You're gonna تروحوا download. You're gonna double click on la palette اللي télécharجيتوها, and here you go. عندكم la palette limitée تاعكم تاع les couleurs that you're gonna use. Avoir une palette de couleurs harmonieuse et limitée is also a good thing parce que vous serez mis dans un choix limité. Ça veut dire que بصيف les couleurs راح يمشيو مع بعضهم. If you want to go for like a bigger palette color, of course كاين في iSprite like many palette colors يجين like loaded with color. For example كيما هادي, it's like a lot of colors that you can use. So it's up to you. Si vous voulez une palette de couleurs plus limitée, which doesn't mean that your drawing is gonna look bad. For example, this is insanely pretty and insanely well made. Pourtant, they just used cette la palette de couleurs. And as I said, une fois que vous prenez par exemple la palette de couleurs, ça ne veut pas dire que vous allez only use this color et que ما تقدرش تلعبوا bleu clair ou le bleu foncé, which you can, and it actually could work. So for example, you could like use shadows with red, and if you want to lose like light, plutôt, if you want to do lights, تقدروا تستعملوا par exemple du vert. It gives a style. There is actually an art side اللي يخدم هكذا. Genre it used two different colors. I don't know if you saw like drawings in purple and yellow, and they use purple for shadows and yellow for lights. But ça veut pas dire non plus que je vais juste me limiter si j'ai envie d'avoir de le vibe, mais pas trop, genre juste un truc fait 2 couleurs ou la 3 couleurs et tout. C'est que you're gonna play with the hue saturation of value. T'as les couleurs de base and use them for like highlights and etc. which is still gonna work parce que ça vient de la même couleur de base et que les couleurs de base sont déjà harmonieuses, ça veut dire que ça va pas trop clash. For example, we're just gonna use something like that. Just created like an eye of some insect. Yeah, saturation value, I'm just gonna. And this is everything about the palette de couleurs. I will of course send you the link to the website à la fin باش ما يتبحش like في chat. But for people who wants to use it right now, it's called Lospec. Lospec. Now we're gonna move on to the next point. Okay, slide 2, which is the lines. Alors, the lines, ce qu'il faut savoir, c'est que, comme je vous ai dit tout au début, عفسة معوجة pixel art راح تبان. Ça veut dire que في lines تاعكم, if you do par exemple dessiner ou par exemple, on va dire une courbe, que les pixels يجيو هكذا معوجين, you're gonna know بلي معوجة. Your drawing is still gonna look, let's say, okay, but it's not gonna look, à un certain moment, ça va look weird, and you're gonna be like, why are my like courbes looking weird? And everything had got like why it's jaggy and how it's not jaggy, or how we make our lines work, is actually by using this small rule, which I like how the book that I'm gonna show you l'ont visualisé. C'est que you can't use, for example, deux pixels, بعد un pixel, بعد 3 pixels. This is what's gonna cause the jaggy. Ça veut dire qu'un pixel can't hold between like two, on va dire, big pixels. Ça veut dire que واحد مسكين ما راحش يقدر يشد entre deux grands pixels. هنايا les deux pixels, هنا il y en a trois, هنا il y en a trois. It will be more, on va dire, équilibré s'il y avait un troisième pixel. And this is how what actually makes a better line. Ça veut dire que un pixel, deux pixels, deux pixels, trois pixels, trois pixels. You can't go like put a smaller pixel between two big pixels. So for example, هنايا la courbe تاعنا عندنا like you can see هنا بلي there is like le compte تاع هنايا. La différence entre هادي وهادي c'est que هادي elle est plus jaggy que هادي et que هادي فيها une erreur et que هادي non. D'un œil genre هكذا كي تشوفوها هكذا genre juste la courbe بوحدها, you're gonna say well it's fine, it's not that of a big deal. Mais trust me, when you're gonna start drawing and actually like sculpting the shapes, it's gonna show. Quand vous faites un cercle, quand vous voulez dessiner like shapes that are circled, ou là, des lignes qui sont droites et représenter une ligne droite, it's gonna show if the pixel isn't straight ou là, la courbe elle n'est pas bien faite. So always remember, بلي you can't put like a small pixel وحده entre plusieurs pixels. You always have to make l'équilibre. You're gonna start 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, and then if you want to move to cut, it's fine because you have like 3 and then 4, 4, 4. And if you want to go back, you still can go back. Par exemple, si je veux faire par exemple 2 pixels, بعد 3 pixels, بعد je veux revenir vers 2 pixels, I still can. For example, كيما هنايا, genre il y avait 2 pixels, بعد 3 pixels, 4 pixels, bon, ils ont pas mis هنايا, mais like 3 pixels, 2 pixels, and then I still can go back to 1 pixel as long as the second pixel is still a 1 pixel and not a 2 pixel, etc. So make sure this is just for like clean line art. And yeah, this is everything about line art. Now we're gonna talk about the part that is about outlines. Alors ce qu'il faut savoir, c'est que outlines is gonna be 100% dépendant de vous et de votre choix. Ça veut dire que whether you want to go with no outlines, whether you want to go with colored outlines, whether with black outlines, this is dependent on how your game wants to be. Of course, I will try to show you some examples من le livre Adam, mais this is like one of the examples I took. For example, on a le premier like style تاع pixel art اللي هو the no outlines pixel art, which is personally my favorite. I don't like too much outlines, especially the black ones. I feel like they pop up a lot, but it depends on like your art style, as I said, ولا la direction artistique لكن تروح راح تروحوا بها. There's the sellout outlines, which you can see that quelques outlines juste sur le contour that are still grayish. There is the color outline. راح يكون une couleur un peu plus foncée على la couleur que تاع l'objet que vous outlinez. هنا for example, il y a eu un peu de vert par là, il y a eu un peu de bleu foncé في le béret تاعها et tout. هنا il y a the black out, ça veut dire que outlines that are only on the outside of your drawings, ou là your elements, ça veut dire qu'il n'y a pas de outlines à l'intérieur. On a black in, ça veut dire qu'il y a une outside and inside, ça veut dire que la ligne t'as le béret, par exemple le visage هنايا, comparing between these two, like the hands in the inside and etc. So this is like the outlines. Alors je vais vous montrer the book that I was talking about. Okay, this is not, that's the one. Okay. So we're gonna go to outlines. Tick, 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 tick. Okay, this is the part about outlines. So for example, هنا عندنا like the no outline side. So for example, في le Mario تاع 64, if I'm not wrong, like this Sonic, this Bowser, there is no outlines في les caractères تاعنا. And this is what makes like, on va dire, l'esthétique de tout le jeu. Ça veut dire que tous les éléments du jeu, well, at least all the characters, because sometimes you want to make le character comme stand out على le background et vous allez juste change هاد le paramètre. Ça veut dire que for example le background تاعكم ما فيهش outlines, le character تاعكم تقدروا ديروا له outlines باش it stand out more. But you can also go for no outlines like دايما. كاين the black outlines. هنايا كاين like the in and yeah, it's mostly the in and out black outlines. Genre for example هاد les petits caractères. Can also the black contour, ça veut dire que ça va être juste le contour. Le caractère تاعكم là, les objets تاعكم اللي راح يكونوا black. And عندكم the colored outlines, which is also pretty in my opinion. C'est juste que vous aurez toujours à prendre une couleur qui est plus foncée que le truc que vous contourez. Parce que for example, we're not using the same outline color. Par exemple, هنايا les cheveux étaient bleus. What we're gonna use is a darker blue. And the body is yellow, ça veut dire que we're gonna use a dark brownish yellow. هنايا, par exemple, his short is red, so we're gonna use like a darker red. We're not gonna use always the same color pour tous les outlines. We're gonna change the outline على حساب l'objet, les contours et sa couleur. Same thing for this like flying lady thing. The pink is outlined by a darker purplish pink. The hands are outlined by a brown, and the orange hair is also used with a different brown. The Joker هنا كيف كيف, and you can play with that. Just make sure to pick like un style, maximum 2 pour mettre le contraste بين le background تاعكم ou le caractère تاعكم si vous voulez que votre background genre pops up. So for example, let's say que le background تاعكم قاعد فيه like no outlines. It would be cool. Some games did it when the character is outlined genre juste من الفوق, like with dark outlines. And the character pops up of the game and is more seen. Well, this is pretty much everything about like the outlines. It depends, as I said, on you and the style you want to go with. And yeah. Now we're gonna move on to the next point, which is the anti-aliasing thing. Alors, what we mean by anti-aliasing, let me just put cette image en grand. Là, on va pouvoir la voir. And we're also gonna put the full screen. Alors, si on remarque bien la différence between no anti-aliasing drawings ou the actual drawing with the anti-aliasing, c'est qu'on va remarquer que هنايا, par exemple, the shadows, the lights, and the blend تاع les couleurs ما بيناتهم, mais especially like the lights and shadows, راهم sharp. And même the outlines genre يكونوا genre very sharp and very seen. The anti-aliasing واش يجي يدير, c'est qu'il va créer genre, on va dire, un dégradé. T'as le changement de couleur. Ça veut dire que ça va pas être un changement de couleur genre brut, mais plutôt un changement de couleur gradual. So like for example, إذا they're like shadow تاعي like in a gray thing. I'ma add like a line of light green parce que je vais partir vers du clair. And that add so much to the drawing parce que هنايا par exemple هنا يبان comme a little bit un petit peu plus flou que هذا mais هذا يبان plus détaillé que هذا. Genre for example if we see like his body هنا par exemple this ball هذه blue اللي راهي هنايا genre هنايا elle a été posée brute. Par contre هنا adding the anti-aliasing ce qui est des pixels with low opacity اللي جايين genre la couleur هذه تاع the shadows ولا تاع the light on va add it من الفوق and it's gonna create this gradual like on va dire transition بين les couleurs which is gonna give more plus d'harmonie même for like the lines t'as par exemple the foot if you can see هنا the foot genre par exemple كان رايح من الdark vers le clair we picked like low the same color we lower the opacity and then we add it le dessin d'Adam and it creates like this gradual transition. Of course, this is still like a really good art style, but this is more professional if you want to like make good pixel art. You still can go with it. It still can be very pretty, but this has its own thing, on va dire. Okay, so دوكا درنا like هدرنا anti-aliasing هدرنا like على everything. We're gonna draw a small thing, even though we still drew some stuff here and there. And I wanted to talk to you about Shri about animation and how we're gonna make. Et donc, on va juste supprimer les layers هادو. And tout à l'heure, j'avais fait une fiole et tout. Mais what we're gonna do, c'est que just gonna pick head layers. Gonna delete layer. And then we're also gonna delete this frame. We're gonna just keep this one. And we're gonna delete everything. On va faire une fiole. On va créer une fiole. And we're gonna try to put a liquid inside it. And of course we're gonna try animate it. Also إذا تحبوا par exemple جيتوا تديسينيو والكانفا كان كبير ولا حبيتوا تبدلوا size of canvas all you have to do is press C and then هنا عندكم like the canvas on va dire size and etc and you can actually change it. So personally I'm gonna change it to 64 by 64 and here we are. Okay, so une fiole what we're gonna start with ça va être like le vert تاعها and we're gonna make it they want it to be عندكم هنايا تاني اللي tools تاع symmetry like عندكم symmetry horizontal و symmetry vertical and you can reset it to like the middle. For example I want to use that then هكذا and then okay we're gonna limit هنا now and then I'm gonna use my circle. Là je préfère toujours de mettre circle in a layer and then merge the layer باش هكذا I can like move it first without touching the other pixels. Okay, this works. This is good. And then what you can actually do is actually merge down and both layers merge out. Kif kif. Just gonna remove one pixel هنا parce que voilà. This is way better. Okay, so on a notre fiole. Sauf qu'elle n'est pas transparente. Donc احنا واش حنديرو c'est que we're gonna double click layer تاعنا حنقصوا لها l'opacité. You can actually draw with une couleur with low opacity direct, mais I usually do that. Next, what we're gonna do is que we're gonna start adding details à la fiole. So as I said, عندي la couleur تاعي تاع la fiole تاعي. I'm gonna add of course a new layer. I pick like I'm gonna start with a darker color. Ça veut dire que نقص the value نزيد la saturation. I lower the opacity of course. And then هنايا je vais rajouter par exemple les bordures. Celle devant. Okay, this is too saturated, so I'm just gonna نقص opacité. Voilà, this is better. Tac. Okay, better. And I'm just there we are. Yep. Well, on va mixer des pizzas. Like something like that. Just when like les rapports as Dutch. Not too much, Danny. And then I'm gonna add like light. Okay, I need it to be lighter actually. Even we're gonna go for white. Then I'm gonna add like a highlight, nice small thing. And if you wanna do it like something like that, you can also lower the opacity vision to do like sunlight here, and sunlight here of course. You can play and genre vous jouez avec votre œil on how things looks parce que after all this is drawing and depends on you. Okay, let's like it needs like definition. Okay. Celle qui dérange. Okay. Voilà. Look how we're gonna make the liquid. Just gonna be a layer underneath layer de la fiotaille. Ça veut dire que je peux move the layer. You're just gonna press. Qui tu vois avec la petite flèche avec les 4 flèches de direction. You can move like the things. And what you usually do c'est que نروح layers على البيس تاعي. I'm gonna pick like the smart select tool thingy. I go back to layer 3 تاعي. I'm gonna pick on va dire la couleur تاع la potion تاعي. Let's pick like a bright color. Let's go for red. And we're gonna draw, for example. Et هذا الselect tool qu'est-ce qu'elle va vous aider c'est à limiter genre le liquide the thing inside of your object هكذا vous savez que it is inside. We're gonna use like this red. Hop. Like, I'll pick a darker red now to make la surface du liquide. This way. I'm also gonna نقص l'opacité to make like some shadows. Par-ci, par-là. And on va créer the anti-aliasing thing. Actually, it creates itself if you use like low opacity thing, which is what I usually do. Que I pick low opacity for shadows et ça crée avec le dégradé de trucs. Then we're gonna do like the anti-aliasing thing. Retain layer of low opacity red. And now I'm gonna go and pick une couleur plus claire. And I'm gonna add like some highlight. Aussi notre potion. There we go. Now, on va passer à l'animation. On va essayer de faire le liquide à ce que genre il bouge شوية. Alors le liquide تاعنا كيفاش راح يبوجي c'est que راهو طالع منه. Non, I'm gonna just remove the select color. Parce que for example le liquide تاعنا is in this shape. Sorry نزيد l'opacité. with a better red. Parce que هاولي كيفاش راهو الليكيد تاعنا c'est qu'on va essayer graduellement à ce que le liquide تاعنا يروح يولي هكذا. genre هنا تحبط وهنا تطلع. And we're gonna do it gradually. Ça veut dire que what I'm gonna do c'est que I'm gonna create a new frame, alt and you create a new frame. We're gonna pick layer تاعنا تاع le liquide parce que this is the only thing that is gonna be animated. And this is why having layers is important. This is layer تاعنا حتبوجي and we're gonna start like changing little bit things. Of course, comme je le dis, you can also تخبيه head layer and then work only with this, which is better for when you're gonna pick, on va dire, les couleurs تاعكم. Tac, and then we're gonna pick some of the red. It's gonna start يطلع. Then this red يزيد يطلع شوية هنايا. تاك. هنايا ينقص شوية. تاك. And then I'm gonna add a new frame. Je disais, donc, ce qu'il faut savoir avec Pixel Art 5, c'est que le plus de frames اللي حديروا, le plus l'animation تاعكم is gonna look less jaggy. So it will depend on you. Généralement, the best number of frames for a smooth animation is from 12 وراح. Mais كاين animation اللي they choose to use 6 frames, which is very jaggy, but it has, on va dire, son propre charme. And this is why people généralement use it. Alors, it was هكذا. So it's gonna تنقص, it's gonna تطلع, and then تحبس. We're gonna try to نطلعها like من هنا. Wait, there's something quick. This way. And then of course you can play like you can play the animation like that باش تشوفوا how it's looking so far. For now I made just like 3, which we could add like one more frame between these two. Oh, also there is this tool which is called onion skin. And this onion skin هتوريكم like the step before. So dire que the frame اللي كانت before. هنا par exemple يتوريلي the frame there is before and the frame there is after. So for example, je vais juste vous montrer. Par exemple أنا في the frame 3. Si je dessine 3 هنايا et que حنروح للcut et que تكون عندي onion skin, je vais voir mon objet وين كان في the previous frame. Ou là par exemple si je dessine par exemple 2 هنايا and then 3, je vais aussi pardon, je vais aussi dessiner genre décalé هنايا. Quand je vais aller vers la 4 حنشوف كيفاش l'avancement تاعها كان. Genre the previous layer كيفاش كان, etc. And just keep that in mind. Which is very useful if you're using like animation تاع un caractère qui bouge ولا un truc that is progressively moving, you need the onion skin tool. Okay, now you're gonna just fix a little bit of stuff. طيب كمان نقصها. Then some of the red is gonna start building up now. And then now if you do this, tuck, tuck, I'm gonna add another frame. Tuck, and then I'm gonna start creating like small splash. And and we're gonna add a small splash. Now you can select like your whole thing. نقدروا نجبدوا دوكا لا فيول. And if we هنايا تاني genre كي تبلايو l'animation تاعكم, this is where you're gonna play l'animation تاعكم. This is how it's looking so far. And of course it looks very jaggy parce que comme je vous ai dit, 6 animation. On pourrait like l'améliorer of course, add more detail and play a lot with more with details et tout. But this is how basically you make, on va dire, une animation. We can play like more with like هنايا the flow. It looks jaggy, doesn't look like it's flowing compared to the red one. So we're gonna do that. هنا ce que je voulais vous dire c'est que if you right click on the play animation عندكم هنايا more settings. Ça veut dire que تحبوا تنقصوا la vitesse تاع l'animation تاعكم ولا تزيدوا la vitesse etc. If you want to play it only once, if you want to play it genre back for the trial, this is up to you. Donc, هنا ce qu'on va faire c'est que we're gonna take the first one and then the second one we're gonna do we're gonna نقصوا هنايا. تاك 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 حنقصوا a bit more هنايا. Okay. هنا you feel like we should نقصرها a little bit and then هنايا بس نقصرها نزيد لها a little bit right now. تاك تاك. Also, one thing كيما هنايا genre ça bouge pas beaucoup, qui nous aide pas, mais ce qui va nous aider peut-être, ça va être the highlights. Okay, so tac 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 tac. So for example, let me add like vite fait a highlight. Of course, je pick ma couleur. I go to hue, saturation and value. Je vais prendre un plus clair. Noir sur l'opacité. What I'm gonna do, c'est que je vais rajouter par exemple une ligne هنايا qui va gradually move avec le liquide. تعاود تولي تبدا تبان. Hop. And also شنو نقدر نزيدو؟ هكذا تبان بلي like there is a sort of flow and movement. Let's also pick this color ونقصلها l'opacité باش نزيدو like the anti-aliasing thingy. Now for example راحت كامل, so we're gonna re-add it. هنايا it's sharper, so we're gonna re-add it. This way. And it should be good. Let's play the animation now. And it looks better. There's more flow. عندنا لا لين هذيك تاع لا كولور تاع لو سيركل تاعنا, which makes it look better. And you have made une potion that is actually moving and etc. You can of course add par exemple des bulles يطلعوا progressivement, like with the frames and etc. But yeah, تقدروا تندعي تاني like remove this for it to be more seen. Parce que هنا j'ai mis un peu trop de lights, which I can like actually. Also, كاين something اللي I forgot to show you, which is for example إذا عندنا une animation over a background. So for example, I'm gonna add like a new layer وحنحطها باللور. Et que le background تاعي ولا the thing هذيك elle va pas changer. Ce que je peux faire durant l'animation, vu que عندي une animation, c'est que je vais cliquer sur هاد les deux boutons. هاد les deux boutons, what it means, ça veut dire que for example if I pick a color that is, let's say, purple, et que je vais colorer the whole thing in purple, and I'm gonna do ça. Normalement, yeah, voilà. You're gonna just copy pass your layer through this thing. Wait, voilà. And I was gonna do, ça veut dire que le background tacom through the whole animation is not gonna change. Et que par exemple, si je décide de changer un détail sur le background tag, par exemple, let's say like, je vais add like a big light purple thing. Like that. And I'm gonna decide to move it. Or just leave it كما راهي parce que c'est one layer. It's gonna be added in the whole frames. Ça veut dire qu'elle va être regardée frames. And this is what this tool works. This is everything that I'm gonna show you today about animation. Si vous avez des questions about more details about animation, you can always DM me or send me. Of course, there is another website because I'm not gatekeeping like stuff. There's this dude which is called Saint11.art, which you can go. It's his own personal website. It's a guy that made like a really nice website mais il a comme des tutoriels d'animation. Ça veut dire qu'il a créé des frames in pixel art, des films like many on va dire animation courses, which I used a lot to learn an animation personally. Like there is walking for animals, there is like fighting for characters, and there is like a lot of like effects. Like عنده بزاف عفاسي, which is amazing. Like عنده even for clouds, environments, face shape, etc. And the good thing about like his things, so like quand vous allez télécharger the GIF and you export it to Sprite, like for example, I had used this one to actually learn how to make an animation. So it's gonna export it as a frame by frame animation. So like this is how you see it on his website, and this is how it's gonna get exported. This actually works for all GIF things, sprite. إذا vous importez un GIF, it's gonna import it as a frame by frame. It automatically detects it. But the good thing with the GIF that had like this artist is that you're gonna see the frame by frame detail, and you actually can work upon that, and it shows you actually when it's like this is like a frame by frame. Can you des animations اللي يمشيو like 2 frame by 2 frame and etc. So I would say definitely check his website if you want like learn like a lot of good animation things. He also puts notes and etc., which are super helpful. And yeah, that's it for the workshop of today. And I hope you enjoyed it a lot. I hope that I was very clear. And if you have questions, feel free to ask. Oh, okay. Uh, I don't see the question. If you can like, oh, thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. I don't see the questions. Why is in order? Someone asked a question earlier. When okay, tick, tick. Oh, let's go. There is an ant. Super cute. Yay! Time lapse. Okay. This is an interesting time map. Okay, so I don't see the question. If someone can like rewrite it. How did you start making art for games? Oh, actually. So how it all started is that one day I was in like a university club, and they had like a lot of IT sections, and I decided to take the game dev section. I started by trying to learn how to code, but that didn't work well since I didn't pretty much understand what I was doing. So I switched to art, especially since I was like drawing on papers before and etc. And I had decided to pick pixel arts because I loved like the vibe pixel art had, and I loved like old Nintendo's games. So I decided to pick that, and I started by drawing. The first pixel art draw that I made was actually shit, if I can use that word, and I didn't really like it. But then with like how, as they say, practice is key. So I kept practicing and made like a first game, which is also on our itch. It's called Vindicta, and it was fully pixel art. If you go and try it, you will see there are a lot of stuff to correct. But it was like the first thing that I did, and then from that we started like making a bit more games for Game Jam, and we worked through that. No problem. Okay, how to deal with close and far things. Okay, so this is a perspective thing. Yeah, I will definitely send the link of the itch. Uh, The thing with perspective is that it doesn't work only for pixel art. It works for, on va dire, n'importe quel type d'art, for every type of art. And I would rather give you like the advice to go check for videos about perspective, because actually how perspective works is that can, on va dire, something that is called the wait, I'm just gonna remove like the grid view, grid settings, and you just put it to 0, 0. Okay, no grid. We're gonna add a new layer. There are something that is called like a point of view. For example, you have perspective that has a point of view, a centered point of view, which means that then you have like the horizon line. This is of course depending on what you're drawing. So for example, this is this is up to you, and it has like many lines going from هذاك le point. So I'm gonna reset symmetry, and we're just gonna create the lines. And for example, this is the perspective. And tac, tac, tac. I can actually show it to you better in a software that is not about pixel art, so you can understand it better. So par exemple, هنايا, je vais vous montrer like a sneak peek for something we're working on right now for the game. This is actually a one point perspective drawing. And as you can see, كاين des lignes اللي يخرجوا like that goes from the point. And since it goes from that point, you're gonna just follow the lines are gonna follow. So, meaning, if we have, let's say we're gonna remove everything this way. I'm gonna add a layer. Every cube that is going to go from that point is gonna have the perspective of the lines. So let me change the settings so it doesn't look too much. Okay, we're gonna go for something like that. So for example, if I want to draw very quickly like cube in this perspective, okay, yep, straight line. Okay, it's not drawing for some reason. Oh, yeah, I was drawing with white. That's why it wasn't drawing. Okay, we're gonna just use like this. And then we have like this square. We're gonna make a square. This is really made quickly, not like making. And then you have this line that this is your vanishing point. That's the word I was looking for. This is your vanishing point. It means that the lines are all going in the direction of that vanishing point. For example,
Test. Can you hear me?
yes.
Oh, finally. I was speaking the whole time, but nothing was heard. Sorry, guys.
That sucks.
Yeah, my bad.
It's okay. And for example, this is a 1 point perspective thing, drawing, and you can play with that. It comes with practice actually, and it depends on the perspective you want to go. There is also a 2 point perspective, which means that you have two vanishing point instead of one. So for example, I'm just gonna remove this two, and let's say this is your horizon line. Okay, using white again. Okay, and you'll have, for example, this point and this point, and as the other points, it's gonna have like a lot of lines going out of that point. This is like really simply made, but let's just say that it has a lot of points, and then at some point you'll have like many intersections of like things, and you'll have to draw like cubes that can go this way, another cube that can go that way, and etc. This is about perspective.
Amazing.
Now,
Thank you so
yeah,
much.
no problem. Now, if you're talking about like perspectives in pixel art games mainly, there isn't, surtout, especially in platform game, pixel art games or anything, you just draw things and then use your eyes to see. For example, there are games that the character is has big proportion compared to the background, so it stands out more. There are games where the character has smaller proportion compared to the background, which you will find in the book that I will share with you later. There there's a lot of detail that that book cover, and that could help you understand even art-based things, let's say. And yeah,
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was a great presentation. We really liked the everything about pixel art, and in most of the projects that we have been part of, pixel art was was the main style. Even Manu is here. Like most of his game are built on pixel art, Rise of
yeah,
Jericho and other games. So yeah, who knows? Maybe you guys will work something out in the future.
yeah, for sure. Why not?
Yeah, Manu. Come on, guys. Any questions? Feel free to ask. And yeah,
I will be dropping the resources later. I just need to gather them all together.
of course, we have a channel called Resources. Feel
Yeah.
free to post anything there. And yeah,
Okay. Do I have like the green light to tag everyone? Or do you need to do it yourself?
definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think Yasin, members can tag everyone in Resources. No? Yeah,
Okay.
they can.
Okay.
They
Great.
can.
Great.
Thank you so much again for the presentation. It was
Thank you
so
for attending.
entertaining and educating at the same time. Guys, feel free to ask anything later on. She's still in the server. If you need any help or knowledge, tag her, and she's really helpful. And yeah, see you next time with another presenter on a new topic.
Okay. Thank you everyone for attending. And one last question there, Daisy. What method do you use to draw character? Like you can't perfectly draw character. Well, it depends on how you want. If you can't draw like characters as you want, you can use like references, because that's how you start drawing. You can actually look for like pixel art characters. There are like some how do I call them? Like only the sculpture of the body and not like the details and everything. You're gonna do that, and you can use that instead of like starting from scratch if it's overwhelming. Okay, thank you everyone. And for everyone who asked
Also,
to
please, could you please like post all your, link tree if you have social media, anything that's can help people know more about your products and upcoming games.
yeah, of
That would
course
be
I'm gonna
really
share them.
helpful. Yeah,
No, actually, like this is our itch page. I'm gonna also link like the last latest YouTube video and our Twitter. We're also on Reddit. We've just started like lately. So if you wanna go and check that,
nice, amazing.
yes. Okay, I'm just gonna link these two and then you'll find the Twitter eventually. Okay.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you so much. Okay,
Thank you for having me and see you everyone. Good night for people.
nights. Bye, everyone.
Good night.